Hello everybody, for this weekend's video, I'm going to talk about some of the variants of the FIRE movement, and I've chosen two variants of FIRE to discuss with the listener. We'll be having a discussion today about the differences between Coast FIRE and Barista FIRE. All right, they're very close to each other, but there's some subtle differences that I think viewers should be able to appreciate. All right, before I begin, let's talk about what the FIRE movement is. It is the Financial Independence and Retire Early movement. It's basically a game to see whether you can generate enough investment returns to cover up your living expenses, right? So you can imagine your expenses as this horizontal line, and we are trying to build investment income that would increase in size gradually until it's able to overtake the expenses, right? And when you reach this crossover point, you have a freedom to redesign your life, right? You can become a millionaire. You can leave a toxic workplace. You can also lie flat, right? If that is your choice. So that sums up the essence of the FIRE movement. I noticed that people from different generations, Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z, they have a different idea of what they want life to be after FIRE. All right, so it's good to appreciate that difference. Now, let's talk about what happens if the FIRE movement is too difficult for a person to follow, right? Because we are all human beings, and human beings, some of us have some limitations, right? It's easier to FIRE if you have a degree from a local university and you're working for a multinational or financial institution, okay? It is very much harder to FIRE if you do not have the proper educational qualifications, right? So people who naturally come into contact with the FIRE movement would want to maybe come up with an easier approach towards FIRE and still benefit from it, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And the first variant I want to talk about is Barista FIRE. Barista FIRE, okay? I'm sorry if my image is blocking the word barista, okay? So in essence, what you're trying to do is that you want to aim for a little bit of early retirement and a little bit of active work, okay? So you generate some passive income to cover your living expenses, but not all of it. But you do a less demanding job, such as becoming a barista, okay? So that you can handle the shortfall. This is easier to achieve than FIRE, and very often requires portfolios of half the size, okay? So, for example, if you are just aiming to generate $1,000 of monthly income from a portfolio of dividend stocks, assuming a safe rate of withdrawal of 4%, you will need a portfolio size of 300 multiplied by 1,000, okay? Okay, or it's basically 12 multiplied by 25, right? And then multiply by 1,000, okay? You need $300,000. So, for example, a hospital nurse who earns 4,500, and you know nursing work is very stressful because there is a lot of shift work involved, right? You want a job with no shift work in a private clinic, but it only pays you 3,500. How do you make the difference? All right, you generate a dividend portfolio of $300,000 in size so that it can cover up that pay difference, all right, moving forward. So this is how Barista FIRE works in practice, okay? And you might also want to ask, if I'm a hospital nurse, how do I raise enough money to generate a portfolio of $300,000? Okay, that is a genuine problem, okay? You can do it by spending very little money. You can do it by inheritance, all right? Sometimes you inherit a sum of money early in life. That can work as well. Very often, if you really want to get out of the rat race and think that, when you're young, you should work a little bit harder, but you want a more relaxed lifestyle later, then you can do more overtime work, okay? So for me, my primary method towards FIRE is a combination of stock options, working overtime in the data center, all right? But I have a fairly decent income early in life, okay? So I'm able to actually fully FIRE, okay? Okay, so this is a Barista FIRE. and an example of how it works. So that's Barista FIRE. It is fire siu dai, Yeah, it is a gentler, more lenient form of fire. Now let's look at the variant known as coast fire. All right. Now, coast fire is subtly different from barista fire. If you're aiming for coast fire, your objective is actually totally different. Okay. Fire is where you save in early in life to fund your retirement at the usual time. Okay. So many of us, we start receiving CPF life payouts at the age of 65. So our retirement age should be around 65 years old, all right, to be reasonable. So if you have enough money in your CPF life to look after yourself after the age of 65, you have succeeded in coast fire, right? And if you reach that stage early in your life, like maybe in your mid-30s, somehow you're able to get a certain amount of money in your CPF life, then you don't really have to worry about saving for retirement later on. So you can stop retirement savings, okay, and you coast through the rest of your life, okay? Now, in essence, when you're trying to coast fire, you're not trying to change anything about your career. You could be quite happy with the career that you have chosen, okay? It's just that saving for retirement requires a lot of discipline. You have to downgrade your life, maybe lower your standard of living, okay? So there is no need to do that once you attain the coast fire number in your CPF life. All right. So it's very important to talk about coast fire and have a CPF discussion at the same time, because coast fire is an American idea, but when you transplant it into Singapore, you have to know that we have a specific scheme that can assist us with coast fire. So once you're confident that your CPF life can generate your lifestyle expenses at age 65, you're done. And the basic expenses of a 65-year-old is approximately $1,500 to $1,600 in today's dollars. Okay, in today's dollars, right? And this is generated with a CPF special account amount equivalent to today's dollars, $300,000 to $350,000. All right, which means that attaining this full retirement sum, the original FRS of about $200,000 is not enough. All right, it's not enough. You need about $300,000 to $350,000. All right, still not easy to attain within a reasonable amount of time. Okay, so it requires a lot of hard work and some savvy. Okay, but there are three methods to speed up the accumulation of CPF special accounts. All right. So the first is the CPF ordinary account to special account transfer. And this allows you to compound your CPF funds at 4% instead of 2.5%. And you can only transfer up to the full retirement sum, which is currently about $200,000 into your CPF special account. The downside of doing this is that once you move the money to your special account, it is irreversible. And the money cannot be used for housing, which is a major problem for a lot of Singaporeans. Think very carefully before you do this. All right. Now, another approach, which I like a lot, is the retirement sum top-up scheme, or the RSTU. If you have less than your full retirement sum, you can transfer cash up to $8,000 every year into your special account and receive a tax deduction of equivalent value. So, for example, you earn $88,000 a year, you put $8,000 into your CPF special account. The tax authorities will treat it as if you've only earned $8,000 a year. $80,000 a year, sorry. Okay, so you pay lower taxes. So RSTU, I think, is a very, very powerful scheme. And for people in their 20s and 30s, if you can figure out how the scheme works by going into the CPF website, this is a very, very powerful way of putting more money into your CPF special account, right? It's like a bond fund that gives you 4% every year. What's there not to love about it? All right. And finally, there is the supplementary retirement scheme, which is not really about CPF, but the government also lets you set aside $15,300 into your supplementary retirement scheme. It can then be invested in local stocks that generate a dividend for you. And this is also very useful when you're trying to accumulate an amount equivalent, right, to about $1,600 every month in passive income after the age of 65. So, for example, if you get your full retirement sum of $200,000 and your supplementary retirement scheme, you manage to get $120,000 to $150,000 after 10 years worth of work, right? You can say that, I've managed to sort of generate the equivalent of coast FIRE, and I can stop doing retirement planning thereafter, right? Once you do that, and there will be a massive improvement in your standard of living if you enjoy your job or you enjoy your career. Okay, so that's something that you can do. Okay, now do note that when we learn about coast, barista, and ordinary FIRE, they are not mutually exclusive. You can build up a dividend portfolio and grow your CPF special account at the same time. All right, so that's what I did. All right, even though when I was in my 20s, I think coast and barista FIRE has not been invented yet. Okay, and of course, I gently ignored it. Right, I was aiming for FIRE, and my entire life is designed around the concept of passive income to support my expenses as a bachelor. All right, so you can do this simultaneously. Now, once you attain barista FIRE and you're relatively happy in your job, like me, then continue until you attain FIRE, because getting from zero to barista FIRE is very difficult. But getting from barista FIRE to FIRE is very easy, because barista FIRE will give you about $1,000 of income every month. And if you are able to save that along with your earned income, it's very easy to get into FIRE thereafter. Okay, so FIRE can be very challenging to attain. Make sure that if you hit your coast and barista FIRE milestone before you attain FIRE, make sure you celebrate accordingly. Okay, so this way the journey will become a lot more pleasant for you. Okay, if you like my content, subscribe to my channel. You can buy me a coffee on this link. If you want to listen to my life story, Google ERM intro and take the first link, and I should be there to speak to you for the preview of my early retirement masterclass. All right, so with that, thank you very much, and I'll see you next week where I have a lot more content in store for you. Thank you.